Hello, everyone. This is Daryl from CD Baby, and welcome to our panel today, our presentation. Hope you're enjoying Global Toronto so far, and I hope you stay online. Later today is Mondo at 4 p.m. So today we're talking about strategizing and planning for a successful release of your music. This is something that I'm getting tons of questions all the time from artists, and this is something that's really important. So this is sort of one of my pillars. This is one of the main things that I'm always talking about because we are in a stage, a time where it is the age of DIY. Record labels aren't quite what they used to be. Often they're looking for artists that are already ready for the next stage. So therefore, it's often on the artist and their team to put everything together themselves. So, like I said, this is what we consider the age of DIY. So, with that said, I wanted to sort of quickly mention that as CD Baby, we're part of the process as a distributor. We get the music out globally. We get it to all the DSPs, but also we have the service of publishing administration. That's all a part of it. But one thing to note, a big part of what we do is education to artists. Outside of this, just so that I don't forget to mention, is that we have a DIY blog, whether you use CD Baby or not. It's a great resource. We have a DIY podcast, also a great resource, free to listen to. And normally we have a DIY conference in Austin, Texas, and in Spain, but not this year, unfortunately. So just note, outside of this talk and discussion, there are ways to find information through those sources. And Zach, if you want, you could drop the links. Zach, if you could wave your hand. Zach is helping us out by dropping links and helping monitor the sidebar chat. So if you have a question, you could drop it in the sidebar. We're going to try to leave some room at the end for Q&A. I strongly suggest networking during this time as well. So in the sidebar, put in links, put in your profiles, say who you are, what country you're tuning in from. We want to know. And as well, Zach, you could drop my socials if anybody wants to connect with me, and emails and such. So with that said, let's talk, and this is going to be a really fast hour. It's going to be crazy, lots of info, and hopefully you take notes. First off, and we're just going to put in a list of all sort of the topics I'm going to try to touch on in this short time. The one thing to note, I often say, like, distribution is a part. That's after you've created. That's after you've planned. So yes, we can distribute your music, but how do we get it so that your music's being heard and recognized and that your career is progressing to new levels? So here's steps that we're going to talk about. Creation. I'm not going to talk about that much. That's you writing, recording, getting product ready to be released. But we are going to talk about getting your business in order, goal setting, strategy, and that includes a release strategy, creating a timeline, marketing and content creation, and then execution. Okay, all of these are very important, and a lot of it is that as an artist, I really find, it's the Wild West right now. When I grew up, it was very structured. There were record labels, there were stores to sell product in, all this kind of stuff. There were tour schedules. We still kind of have a lot of that, but we have to do it ourselves a lot of the time. So the business is on us. And often, if you've talked to me before or anything, I'm from Toronto, Canada, and we live hockey in Canada. So you may hear me do comparisons with hockey. If you think of it, why do you start to play a sport? Fun. Why do you start to play an instrument? Fun, enjoyment. And then it turns into personal creation and messaging. What do you want to present to the world? And then we start getting up to a higher level. And in sports, you want to be pro. That's where the money is, and so forth. So you may hear me do some metaphors with hockey and so forth. So let's get to it. Here we go. Creation. Again, this is you writing and recording, getting everything ready to go. Often the case, big mistake I hear from artists is, can we release it next week? I just finished it. And that tells me often that they don't have a strategy to release or a plan, no marketing behind it. And we can release it, but is it going to actually give you the goals or the results that you're looking for? Now, in the big scheme of things, in Canada at least, I suggest June and July are the best months to record. It's summer months. You shouldn't be playing shows unless it is profile festivals, high profile that will help elevate you. Other than that, you're competing with other festivals, free street festivals, food festivals, patios, backyard barbecues. You're competing with all that kind of stuff. So June and July, best time to write and record. August is where, June, July, write, and August record. And I'll get back to that when we talk about the timeline. Now, also the next part is business. You got to get it in order. Get all your agreements together. I've seen lots of bands not have agreements, but if stuff starts taking off, everybody goes, where's my cut and how much is it? And that's where arguments start to happen, and that's where momentum stops. They need to stop and figure out the business to get back on track. So get all your business in order first. That's all your agreements. And another thing to note is if you haven't released music, release something as soon as you can, only for the purpose of claiming your Spotify account, right? And that means as well, create all your social media accounts if you don't have it. And in some cases, you might want to fine tune it so that all the account names are the same, so you're easily found everywhere. Not band music, music band, official, all these different names everywhere. So if you can try to get it so that all your account names are the same or similar, that would be a good thing. Okay, but again, claim your Spotify account as soon as you can if you do not have it. There may be some issues like somebody with the same name and things like that. You'll get it all sorted, but that can take time. And if you're trying to release like next week, that doesn't happen. So, okay. Now, once you get your business in order, set your goals. This is you need to define who you are, but also where do you want to be? And often I tell people, think 12 to 24 months. Where do you want to be in 12 months? Now, if you think, like I mentioned hockey earlier, it's kind of like that. There's a season every year, and at the end, there's one champion, and everybody's trying to get to that goal. And once it's done, they evaluate, fix, and try all over again. So it's very similar in the music business as running a band. Okay, so set your goals. Where do you want to be? List them. Be very detailed. And this could be things like, I want 10,000 subscribers on YouTube. I want to average 80,000 listeners on Spotify. Put details into this so then you can really evaluate and make sure you're getting your goals or you're not. Okay. And then you want to prioritize those goals. Is this a high priority or a low priority? Often we tend to like certain things and we're going to spend a lot of time on those things, but they may not produce our results. But because they're the easiest or things we like, we may spend all of our efforts and energy there. So do put in priorities, and often the stuff we don't like to do, that should be the highest priority. Okay. But then you just got to be real with yourself. This is really important. Okay. Now, when you're building your strategy, you also want to start thinking a release strategy, not just put the music out. And this may take time, right? And like I just talked to some artists last week, and it's like spend the time on planning, and then execution is easy. because you're just doing what you planned. And if you need to take 2 months to plan, take 2 months to plan. There's no rush. Okay. Now, when you're doing a release strategy, one of the tools I use is Google Docs spreadsheets. And it's kind of like when I'm consulting an artist, I'll say, when do you think is going to produce the best results? And think of the year. Like, is October the best time for you? Is September the best time? Put down the date that you think will produce the best results. Now your timeline is from now until that date. And that's how much time you have to put everything together. And, you know, when I really sit down with an artist and I start doing this, often they go, there's not enough time, even if it's 4 months away. Okay. And you'll see that as we go through this. It's very important to give yourself time to do it right. When you do it right, you're going to get the right results. Thinking about hockey, the second a season is done, they're starting to sell season tickets for the next year. They're already planning what players to draft for the next year. What players what lines, the combinations they want to put. They're already planning to try to win the cup the next year. So think of that. Okay, now when you're doing release strategy, it's okay to be vague when you start your marketing. Another comparison I often use is movies like the Avengers Endgame. Yes, very commercial, but very successful. They've done over $1 billion, and that's pretty cool. They announced they're going to release this movie 4.5 years before they released it. 4.5 years, think of that, right? And they didn't even have a director. They didn't even have the design. They didn't have nothing. So it's okay to be vague and just say, hey, working on music to release in the fall. It's okay to be as vague as that, right? And then as you go, you release more and you're revealing the details and you're telling the story. So think of like a behind the scenes photo, a video clip, walking on the way to the studio, just say, hey, on the way to the studio, do another session for our release for the fall. Hey, do things like that. Do a live session. Hey, I just wanted to share with you something I'm working on, and you play a snippet of you playing acoustically what you're writing, you know? So you're creating the story leading up to the release, and it's okay to start with completely vague, and you're filling in the details as you go. Often I see people don't start until they have the details, but then they just want to get to the finish line very quickly. So it's actually better to draw it out. Create content as you go. Okay, so think of things as well, like questions, polls, you know, hey, here's 2 riffs. Could you tell me, do you like riff A or riff B? That gets engagement, okay? And what you're trying to do is build engagement as you go. And, you know, often we're thinking everything is absolutely organic online when it's all algorithms online. And you're trying to build where people are liking, sharing, commenting, and you're getting into their feeds and their algorithms. Hopefully they share it and it kind of starts growing outward and you're building audience, okay? And really the goal is have it so that people care about your music. So when you release it, they're waiting for it. You're building demand as you do this. Okay. Now, how do we execute this? How do we get things to that point? Build a 12-month timeline. I've also recommend, if you have the time, build a 24-month timeline. Okay. Now, thinking about hockey, we know when the draft season is. We know when preseason is. We know when there's certain deadlines, like you can't trade anymore, you can't change your team anymore, like you've got to have your set lineup when you start, all of that kind of stuff. There's deadlines throughout the year. And if you kind of set that up for yourself, it's going to help you. Now, I mentioned before, we're all like, you're DIY, doing it yourselves. Man, you have to be like an accountant, a booking agent, a promoter, a PR person, a web person, a photographer, a videographer, copywriter, and somewhere in there you want to create your music. So time management is key. And creating a timeline allows you to go, oh, this is when I write, this is when I record, this is when I mix and master. And you don't mix tasks if you can, because it's really hard to be creative. Like, when we're doing our marketing, but if I'm building stuff, it's hard for me to be creative and write something really exciting. If you look at any of our posts, if it says live session Tuesday, 4 p.m. next week, you could tell I'm actually probably doing something else and I don't have the time to be creative. And therefore, the results aren't as good as we would like them to be. So time management is through a timeline. Google Docs spreadsheet, massively helpful in this area. Okay, so I would suggest use a spreadsheet to just plan it out. First column, you put in the date and you put in a day for every day of the year. And that allows you to assign what you're doing during those times. You could use columns like songwriting for column 1, like recording for column 2, marketing for column 3, and so on. And you can match it up to the days. Now, when you're doing the timeline, you have to be pretty real. Like, can I achieve this in 4 weeks, 6 weeks, 8 weeks, 4 months, that kind of thing. By categorizing, it's going to allow you to do time management. And here's what I would do as a 12-month plan. I've used this for almost every artist I have consulted or managed, and it's worked almost every time. Now, this is based on Canada months, but just think summer, wherever your summer is, it's probably consistent with this. So the thing is this, write June and July. And now if you're writing a song a day, you potentially have 80 songs after like 5 days a week. You have 80 songs to choose from. You choose your best songs and you record them in August. Now, in a normal pattern, September, October, you would be touring, and you'd be touring promoting the last release you did, or touring for the first time and building audience before your release. December, I suggest you mix and master. You go back to those recordings. You've had a little bit of time, and this is where you can edit, change a little bit. But the goal is having a mastered product by the end of December. January, this is where you're going to create all your marketing assets, your photos, your videos, script writing, social media messaging, figuring out your hashtags. Also, we are in COVID, but normally you'd be performing. I often use January as a month to be booking shows through the entire year. February, you start releasing, your teaser videos. Maybe at the end of February, you can release an acoustic version. March, you might want to release a video. Now, the other thing too is if you have tours coming up, you're co-marketing them. You're starting announcing tickets on sale, tour dates, while you're announcing new music, and they start promoting each other. And I would say start off with like a CD release party kind of vibe, or new music release or new video release party to help promote a live show. Now, again, we're during COVID times and it's a little bit slightly different, but you could do a online worldwide release, as I see some artists are starting to do. Okay. April, May, that's the time to tour off of your release. And what you're trying to do is get reviews. You're trying to get press. You're trying to get people talking about you. You're building your story. Okay. And then that means you're already back to June, July. You start writing the next record and you just repeat. The fall tour is off of your release in the spring, and you release another single in between, if not 2 singles in between. Okay. Now, that's sort of the overall look, and you want to start looking at the release strategy, more of a micro release strategy. And this is where you can really realize how much time you're going to need. And it's actually quite a bit. It's really surprising. I just went through this with an artist about a month ago, and they're like, yeah, we want to release in 4 weeks. And I'm like, really? And when we went through it, it looked more like September, October. Here's the things to think about. When you're releasing a single, you have the chance to submit for playlists. When you are releasing an album, you can submit one song from that album on a playlist. So you kind of burn all the other songs for an opportunity to get onto a Spotify playlist. So that's the power of releasing singles, is that if you release 3 singles, you've got 3 chances to submit for a Spotify playlist. Now, algorithms on Spotify, though, they want to see you releasing often, right? And this is where I think artists and a lot of people kind of get caught up in release as much as you can and then as often as you can, where I would say release a single and maybe it's a different mix than what's going to be on the album. So just think of like a radio edit is slightly different than the album. That potentially gives you a chance to submit twice. Now, the other thing is that if I take a step back, a lot of artists are asking me, we want to release every song or as many songs as a single, but then release them as a collection, as an album later. That's good, but it also can hamper things because you can't resubmit. And also, you have to take it down and then resubmit it and put it up as an album. So you have to have different ISRC codes, if you're having the same ISRC code, then you often have to take it down and resubmit it and re-upload it as its album. So if you do the radio edit or a different mix, then you can keep that single there and then release it as an album. To release often, I would suggest release an acoustic version, a remix version, a feature track with a collaboration, right? And of course, an instrumental version. Don't release them all at once, but do put them out there. That means that you are releasing often, you get into the algorithms, but you're not using 6 songs to get into the algorithms. And that gives us time then to plan and put out the second single properly and build audience. The instrumental version is crucial if you're interested in sync placement. Often TV shows, movies, they want to have access to an instrumental version as well. And when you're pitching, this just really helps out, okay? And it's the kind of thing that you don't know how they're going to discover you. And sometimes there's crawling around playlists or looking throughout Spotify. And if they know you're ready to go, the one thing with sync placements is I've seen it where it's like, okay, we need this in an hour. So now you've got something, you're ready. And the other thing, and it's interesting, I've heard this on one of our DIY podcasts. One of the battles between producer and artist is, could you just mute the vocals and just leave it at that and we're going to release that? And often the producer's like, well, no, we want to actually adjust it so it sounds good like an instrumental. And it's like, no, just hit mute on the vocals and let's ship it. Also what happens in movies and TV shows is often they do their own mixes. So they may mix lyrics in and out. So the 2 versions that are exactly the same allows them to do that without having to do a re-edit later. So that's just another little tip, okay? Now, when you're doing your timeline, the marketing side of things, you're looking for, oh, Taylor, just a question. No, they don't just want instrumental, they just want the options. They want to be able to have instrumentals if they want, and they don't want to wait for it. And they want to have lyrics if they want, and they don't want to wait for that either. It's just timing is really the key. Mastered. Yeah, have it all ready to go. Just mute the vocals, and it's the same master, and then you're ready to go. And I've seen where artists have missed out chances just because they took too long, and too long was 3 hours. So Okay, now talking about the timeline and marketing. When you have the timeline together and it's all your marketing steps, then you start going, I need a photo for this. I need a video clip for this. I have to write the text message for it. I'm going to promote it on socials. I have to write the text messages for that. What are the hashtags for that? So you kind of build up what I call a content library, and it's everything you need. And, you know, I think where we get into traps is we're trying to do the execution, the planning, and the creation all at the same time all year round. And we always go, I have no time to do this stuff. So that's why I said before, timeline allows you to compartmentalize. So just think, if January is the month for you to create all of your assets, the rest of the year, you're just executing. You know, we're going to put out the video on October 12th. Well, it's okay. I made it in January, right? Now you get to be the artist and promoter. Okay, you're not creating. You're now promoting your music. You're promoting your shows. Very, very important, and it's key. Okay, now you've got all your content and all that stuff's together. One thing I want you to look up and Google is evergreen content. If you haven't heard the term before, Google it. Evergreen content is like, I've got one piece of content that can turn into 80 things or more, and I can use it over and over again, right? So that's where you gain back a lot of your time, is that through the planning, you've created content, but you're using it over and over and over again. And it's like, okay, well, if I put out a video, okay, that could be a post on Twitter. I could post it on TikTok. I could put it on Instagram. I could put it on Facebook. I might write 3 different scripts for each of those posts. So now I've got 3 versions of it for each of those. And let's say I'm doing 5 videos. Okay, well, then now I've got 3 versions, 4 versions, 5 versions of messaging for each one of those videos. And it doesn't have to be too much, right? So a real big example is, like, I could be like, CD Baby distributes to 144 countries around the world, and we handle digital publishing administration. You just change the wording of that a little bit, and I can keep sending that out all year round. Okay, so that's the key. Now, what that does, and this is part of the most important part, schedule it. A couple online tools to know of is Hootsuite and MeetEdgar. Hootsuite allows you to schedule for posts onto socials. So does MeetEdgar. They both do the same things, but kind of different. Okay, this is really key. Once you schedule it, you can also reschedule it later, and you gain back even more time. And part of it is what I call buffer content. There's some artists, they're dear friends of mine, but they only contact me when they're selling something. So I get their post of like, come to my show. Here's my music. Here's my video. Come to my next show. Have you bought your ticket yet? There's no interaction. And that actually turns me off of like, oh, here they are again. They're only talking to me when they want me to buy something. So the buffer content is all the stuff in between that talks to your audience, keeps them updated, and you're not hitting them up with something. You know, here's a photo of me in the studio. Hey, I'm thinking of this as my next stage outfit. What do you think? All of these kinds of things where you're not pushing anything. And it's really what you're doing is keeping them engaged, keeping yourself in their algorithms, but not selling, so that hopefully they're still there and there's more of them there when you are ready to sell. So that's why the timeline for 12 months is really, really key, right? Oh, and I notice Andrew is online. We've had a very similar talk, and I notice Andrew, his band Imperial Ashes are using some of these steps, growing audience. Okay, so you're putting out all this content. It's called evergreen content. Use it over and over again. Then, you know, you have to think that everything you do is a rehearsal. You know, when you're doing a rehearsal, it's actually a rehearsal on how to rehearse better for the next rehearsal. Whenever you play a show, it's a rehearsal to put on a better show the next time. Think of that in marketing and social media. Whenever you put a post out, did it get the response? Well, evaluate it and make it better for the next one. And if it's not getting the response, don't do it again. That's a very important one. Everything is evaluation. So the Google Sheets allows you that once you go through your timeline, your 12 months, you can look at it and go, what worked and what didn't. Then you hit copy and you do it all over again. And you take out what didn't work, you modify what worked but could be better. And the stuff that worked amazing, you keep. And, you know, as you're going through this process, look at analytics, look at numbers. One of the things that I'm always doing, Zach is actually always doing, is recording all of our social media numbers so that week to week we know, are we better or are we worse or are we the same? Evaluation is really important. Whenever I talk to a new client, like a new artist I'm doing consulting with, one of my first questions is, are you up 25% from last year? And their answers are almost always the same of, I don't know. And that tells me that they're not evaluating properly. They're not working a plan properly. In all business, you know, we go through budgets and we have to look at budgets every year, evaluate what are we spending money on. Did it work last year? Let's spend more money on it. Did it not work? Let's take it out. And you know, as an artist, budgets are so crucial. So when you're doing all this process, you're evaluating and you're creating a template for next year. And it makes it so much easier when you've got a spreadsheet and it's all filled out and you just go, oh, same as last year. And you just change the dates and maybe change a few things. And you get better. And this is where, as an artist or a business, you know if you're on track or not. And if it's completely not working, you know to pivot. There's that word that we're using this year, but this is in a different case. You pivot and readjust. You know, as music festivals, we're all readjusting, and conferences, we're all online now. So this is really important for everybody, is that if you can keep track of your timelines, if you can keep track of your analytics, your results, you evaluate and you improve. Now, we're talking about releasing music. In Canada, we get grants, so grants would be part of the timeline. Touring and traveling would be part of your timeline. Conferences would be part of your timeline. It ends up actually being really massive, and you go, wow, I actually need 4 to 6 months just to figure out what's going on half the time to plan this all out. But timing is key, and I can't say enough about it, right? So some of the tools I mentioned, Google Drive allows you to put everything in one place. Now, a couple things to note about Google Drive: make multiple Google Drives if you need it, because there's a limit on hard drive space. So like you could have your band name or artist name video at Gmail, and all your videos are stored there because they take up most of the storage. You could have media and your band name at Gmail, and that's all your photos and marketing assets. And then communications, and that's all your true emails and things like that. So if you need multiple accounts, create multiple accounts and you can connect them all. It's amazing. Then I mentioned use Hootsuite and use Meet Edgar. That's where you can schedule your social media. And it's great. You can schedule, I think it's like 320 messages in Hootsuite. You could schedule like 3 months at a time, and it's great. I did one test once where I did motivational comments every single day. It took me 5 minutes. I literally Googled what's the best 50 social media motivational comments, and I posted it, and off it went. Other tools that I wanted to mention, though, is IFTT, I-F-T-T-T. It's for if there, then that, or if there, then this, right? You can automate. So I often use this for things like, if I like a song, it puts it into a playlist for me. So I've got a collection of every song I've liked. Or if I like a song, it puts it into a Google spreadsheet. So I've got a record of every song I've liked. It could retweet, it could repost. It's pretty amazing stuff. So that is IFTT, I-F-T-T-T. For a little bit more important or a little bit more complex automation, Zapier. I use Zapier a lot. And that one, you can connect more Google Drive stuff. It's crazy what we've been able to build off of it. We created a program once on the Indie Week side where we ran 150 artist venue charity all off of automations, and that was with Zapier. Now, throughout this process, you're going to want Zapier, Z-A-P-I-E-R. And then throughout this process, you always want to collect and build audience through a newsletter, and that's MailChimp is one, but there's many others out there. But that one's pretty user-friendly. Whenever you're doing anything, collect emails so then you can communicate again. Often the case, I see people play a live show online and then they go, cool, we're done. And there's no way to connect with that person again. Okay. Bandcamp is a artist-friendly web host. So if you need a website, and I suggest everybody have a website, and I could talk more about that. Everybody should have a website, and you should have good text on there, because that's how you get found in Google. Rotor Video. If you want to create lyric videos real quick in 5 minutes, and I suggest everybody should have a lyric video, and in YouTube have all your lyrics typed out, and if you post it on Facebook, have all your lyrics typed out. Once again, possibly you get found and post it onto your website with all your lyrics typed out. I often am searching songs of like, I've heard this phrase and I don't know who it was or what, and I put the phrase in Google, and that's how I find the artist. And then Cloud Bounce, if you're looking to master any songs. And then getting to marketing, another thing to do is a pre-save campaign, and show.co is an online tool that can help administer pre-save campaigns. Now, one thing that I have kind of left for the end is the thing that I get almost most resistance from artists, and especially in Canada, is a Facebook pixel. If you can, put in the sidebar, like, do you know what a Facebook pixel is? Yes or no? I'm always curious about people who know what a Facebook pixel is. Ah, excellent. Most people are saying yes, but I'm getting not really, no, sort of, heard of it. Exactly. This is what really kind of happens. Now, this is the magic in marketing these days. We all would like to think pure that if I post something, people are going to see it. No. Organic is almost dead in all social platforms. We do need to get in algorithms, but Facebook has made it where you can post and it's only going to a fraction of your audience. And Facebook Pixel, what it is it's a bit of code that you can get. You have to have a page, and then you get into Business Manager, and then you can find where it has pixels, and really what it is, code that you put somewhere else. So that's another reason to have a website. If anybody lands on your website and you have a Facebook pixel code on there, Facebook knows it. And the second step is to hook it up to an audience on Facebook. So same thing in Business Manager, you go to audience and you say, this web address with this pixel, listen. And so anybody who goes there, Facebook tracks it, right? And what you're trying to do is build your audience of all the people who have gone to your website. And when you do that, what happens then is then you can create an ad that is targeting the people that went to your website. And it can get really complex. You can do A/B testing, like one version of an ad, another version of the ad, send it to 5% of the audience, 5% of the audience, and then which ad is doing better, send it to the rest of the audience. So then you get better results. Ads are how you get your message out there. It's unfortunate. I wish there were other ways. Organic is cool, but it is not really the way things are. Now, the more other power of the Facebook Pixel is, say, everybody on here has a pixel on their website. That means the person that goes to your website, Facebook knows where they've been. This is Big Brother stuff, but it works for you. So if I was to say, putting on a show in Toronto at the Horseshoe Tavern, I could literally do an ad and target within 20 kilometers of the Horseshoe Tavern, and people who've liked, meaning they've been to sites that are similar, of Bare Naked Ladies or Bob Dylan. And that means you can then predict or get the ad to go to the people that would be most likely the ones that are going to buy a ticket to your show. Turn this into a single release or a record release, and you can get an ad that's promoting your music to people who are most likely to listen, most likely to like your music. Really big thing about Facebook Pixels is that your audience, you're trying to build it, I believe the threshold is 2,000, meaning 2,000 people have landed where that Facebook Pixel is. Now, what that means is then you can create what's called a lookalike audience, and this is where it gets even more powerful. That at those 2,000 people, you could go, Facebook, here's the group of people that have gone to my page. There's more people in the world that are just like these people. Let's create an audience that looks like them. It's called a lookalike audience. And so then it's like, okay, well, these people haven't landed on your site. They don't know who you are, but they most likely would like to know who you are. So now you can send an ad to people you don't even know. And if you have been working on ads as like getting better, then you get better results. Ads don't have to be expensive. They could be as simple as $5 a day, $10 a day, up to whatever your budget is. I did run an ad once, and it was just an awareness campaign, meaning I just want as many people to see it. I spent $382, and 1.2 million people saw my ad. And all I wanted was people to know my brand. And that was it. That's Indie Week, the festival I run. So, and you know, we target South America. You can target geographically. So if you're an artist and you see people listening to your music in a certain country, it makes sense to start advertising there. There's tons of tricks around it. Much more like this is kind of like, could be a 6-month course in Facebook ads and social ads if you wanted, but that's the nutshell of it. Facebook Pixel code, put it on a page, direct people to that page, and then build an audience, advertise to that audience. Build a big enough audience, advertise to everybody that's like your audience, right? Now, if you're on CNN ever, or if you're ever on sites and they have what looks like editorial, like, what did I see the other day? It was something like, you won't believe what this star has done. And you're like, what have they done? I don't know, click. And all it is they just go, cool, gotcha, you're in my audience and I'll get back to you later with a different ad. So that's what those are. It looks like editorial, but it's ads. So if you go on CNN.com and if you scroll down and there's like headlines and it says sponsored by, I think it's called Outbrain. That's a marketing company that has a pixel and they're just gathering data so that they can retarget you later. Okay. So anyways, that's how you get out of the organic side, get into the algorithm side, and man, you can make this grow. There is a Facebook group that I suggest, Indiepreneur. So just think entrepreneur, just put indie instead of ent. And this is all that they talk about all the time, and it's great. So that's the magic of like when you're like, man, I've never heard of this artist. What's happening? I didn't even know, and it's because you're not part of the audience and you don't get the ad. And this is the sad part I find is that, you know, in Toronto there's a club called the Mod Club. It's packed all the time, and I never hear the shows. And the reason is I'm not part of the demographic. I never see an ad, and I don't even know who's playing there. And it's like, wow, I never heard of it, but it's sold out and lined up down the block. So that's the bad result of this era is that, yeah, it's not organic. You know, this could be an artist touring across the country, selling out every single show. And if I'm not in the audience, I've never clicked, I've never been hit up by one of their pixels, or I don't like their stuff, I'm never exposed to it. In the old days, I used to go to a record store. I kept 10% of every paycheck just to buy music that, I don't know, I just went to discover. I bought blues, classical, jazz, rock, country, just discovering music. But nowadays, those record stores don't exist, not as much anyways. So there's less organic discovery. So to get it to work in your favor, look into Facebook Pixel, look into retargeting ads and building audiences. And that's pretty much it all in a nutshell. And what I'd like to do now is open up to questions. If you've got any questions, put it in the sidebar. We did get some questions prior, so I'm just going to see if I can answer some of these. Let's see, we've got a question from Brazil. How are you looking at international cooperation on the digital level, promoting international artists' albums, singles online, as opposed to promoting international tours? This is exactly it. We're all at this conference right now, and we're all international. Drop links, look for collaborations, you know, talking about building content that you can release on Spotify. Look for people that you can collaborate with. Get some of their audience listening to you and your audience listening to them. I would be doing as much of that as I could right now. And like Global Toronto, there's conferences online. I've been in, today alone, I think I've been in 3 different webinar sessions, 4 different webinar sessions, including this one. So it's crazy. And Carmen from Toronto, who do you recommend hiring to help with an album release? Well, that's a tough one because what you're doing is you're building a team around you, and it has to be the right fit. Look for people that know your market, understand the needs that you're looking for. And one of the things that I want to mention through this whole process, you know, so many people I see are asking, how do I get a manager? Well, do really amazing stuff and they'll come and find you. How do I get a record label? Same thing. And an agent, same thing. When you're building it, really put your head down, do the work. Don't go pushing, trying for other people to, you know, come on board. They will come out of the woodwork if you are doing the right work. And what it is all of this stuff will build momentum. And when you build momentum, it's almost like a magnet, and people will go, oh, I've heard of you. This is great. Can I work with you? That's how you find the best people. They find you, right? Now, another thing, another question. Alex from Toronto, any tips and ideas keeping the momentum going post-release? Well, that's when you release your remix. That's when you release alternate versions as well. Or if you do live streams performing a release after it's released. All of those are the kinds of things that you keep the momentum going. You got to keep pushing that song while continue building your audience, keeping your audience. And then you start giving the sort of like the hints of what your next single is going to be, right? I did want to mention about engagement as well. While the social media is all scheduled and planned, it's really important that you connect with your audience, right? One guy to look up is Gary Vee. He has this whole sort of $1.80 plan on Instagram, and it's called My Two Cents. Here's a real quick kind of thing that he sort of put together. It's kind of cool. We use it as well. You look up hashtags. What are the top trending hashtags for what you want to be involved in? You comment on the top 10 posts within that hashtag category, right? And what you're trying to do is hopefully some of those people will come back to you, but because they're trending, they have the biggest audience, and you get into the algorithms of the biggest audience, right? Now, the whole $1.80 comes in where I'm trying to remember this. Zach, you know this probably better than I do. It's where if you think you're adding your 2 cents and that's a comment, well, you got to do 90 posts a day on trending topics within the hashtags that make sense to you, right? Now, if you do that, you will see growth, but you got to be consistent every single day, 90 posts. And that's where his whole saying of my 2 cents, 90 times 2, and that's $1.80. Okay. So another question from online. If you're doing your own PR, how do you plan additional press beyond your premieres? For example, do I send a private link to other press before premiere comes out? Trust it won't leak. Or do I wait until premiere drops? I would suggest definitely trying to get some press prior to a release. If you can get a few reviews. And in that timeline that I talked about earlier, the reason why I do, and I learned this off of a dear friend who runs a record label in Toronto years ago. The reason why I normally do like the main sort of release in the spring is that you can do a tour in the spring. And in the summer, you've now collected reviews, not only of your song, but of your show. And if you release another single in the middle of summer and another single in the fall, you're building your press story. So then those reviews help push the fall. So it's just like a movie. They do the whole sort of festival circuit, you know, TIFF, and they try to get the reviews. And when the movie's released, all the review quotes are in the advertising when they finally release the screening. So that's one of the ways to do that. Do we feel we're in a single-driven world versus album? I think we're both. I think that the algorithms on Spotify want you to continually release singles, but it's always good to have that collection of songs. It is good, but you might want to think more like 6 songs instead of 12 songs. People don't listen all the way through. People don't listen in order, all that kind of stuff. But by having that single version, it allows you to do promotion. And then having the EP version allows you to do more promotion with the same material. So it is PR almost all the time, unfortunately, right? So that's one thing that's really important. Now, let's see what else we got here. Steve, when uploading music for the first time, is there a pre-existing artist with the same name already and you can't change yours? What steps can be taken? Well, I know on the CD Baby side that you can hit our support. We've got a support.cdbaby.com. Almost all these questions are answered there. It's a big online database searching for these kinds of things. But if you're also a CD Baby client, you can do a ticket and support will help take you through the steps. So that's one thing we've got is phone support, online support, and you know, the one thing I have to say and mention, if you know CD Baby, the last few months, COVID, man, it has been interesting. You know, we do inspect every single release, which takes a bit of time. And when COVID hit, all the artists went, let's release stuff now. And like, just like we call it, like we just got hit with a wave of tsunami releases, like thousands releases, and all our whole staff are at home and trying to get through it. So we got behind a bit, but we're getting close to being caught up now. So if you have submitted any kind of tickets and it's taken a little longer, that's all. We're all working from home. We're just like everybody. It's kind of crazy. Rebecca from Edmonton says, what are the differences with pandemic versus non-pandemic? Do you just release singles now or drop the whole project? So similar to Ravina's question. And hi, Ravina. So this is the thing. Singles are great, you know, especially if you're building audience. And let's put it this way. Maybe you're a new artist and you're just starting out. I suggest singles. If you're a little bit more well-established, singles leading to a EP. And if you're really established, that's when I would go with the full release. And, you know, I want to comment on that. You know, if you've released music, it's like 10 years ago, it's still new to the people who haven't heard it before. So, you know, there's nothing saying like you can go to your back catalog and either re-record it, remix it, or re-release it. You know, whatever your best music is, put it out there. That is your best step forward. And if you're playing live at a place you've never played before, play your best music. Sometimes you go, oh, this is boring. I play this every time. Not boring to the people hearing it for the first time. So that's one thing you could do as well in between releases. Look at your back catalog and go, is there something here that we should re-release? You know, and it may make sense, take some stuff down and re-release it as a different package with a few edits, you know, or keep the old one up. Like, how many Kiss greatest hits albums are there when it's all the same music, right? That's what a lot of these guys are doing. And then how many live albums do they have playing the same songs? So just think that if somebody hasn't heard your music, they are a potential new fan. And like I said, with the newsletter and that kind of stuff, you want to connect. Cool. Now, looks like we are nearing the end. If there's any last questions, drop them now. If you want to connect with me later, canada@cdbaby.com is email there. If you are interested in collaborating, if you're a record label or another festival or anything, and you want to collaborate with Indie Week, Daryl.hers@IndieWeek. And one last thing, we're going to give out a promo code if you want to release a single in our pro version. Zach is going to drop a link and you just fill out your info and we'll send you a promo code. I believe the deadline is end of August, but if you get in that list, we often send more later on. Cool. And real last quick question in. Releasing singles on Spotify, then as a group, CD, vinyl? Yes, I totally still agree in physical product. So we're down to our last minute. I have to say thank you to Global Toronto. What a great event. Thanks to Zach and Alex who've been running things in behind the scenes. Thanks to the Global Toronto team. And another last thing to plug is we have a new Canada Spotify playlist, Sounds Canadian. It's CD Baby artists that we're promoting. Go to Spotify, Sounds Canadian, and follow us there. Let's connect. Let's keep this community alive. You guys are awesome. And hit me up anytime on any of my socials.